Now remember, friends, the purpose of this session is not just to discuss evangelism. The purpose is for you to go home and do it. And we're looking for things that you say, we can do this at our congregation. I personally can do that. So be sure that on the sheets you've got, you're writing down some things that give you ideas, and that you'll really be able to put this into practical use. The book that Kent mentioned, my book on evangelism there on the table, has got some of these stories in it and more of what I've been sharing with you. And if you think that'll be helpful to you, why then you can get those. But let's be sure. And somebody asked me, can you reproduce these sheets I've handed out? And of course you can. If you go to your congregation and you want to share some of this with them, why then you can use those sheets however you would like. That'll be great. Okay, let's go to our next ring. Ministry evangelism. Ministry evangelism. Every congregation needs a group of people. That's their local outreach committee, their local outreach ministry, a small group of people who are deeply committed to evangelism. Just like you've got an education committee or a benevolence committee or whatever, how it is you operate at your church, you need some group of people that are thinking evangelism all the time and become the leaders in your congregation in promoting evangelism, the ministry. Now here's some things that those people ought to do. Number one, they are avid about being sure that every visitor is well treated, the information is collected, and there's follow-up. That's their first job, is to be sure that they get information. If you have a vacation Bible school, they get the names of all the kids who aren't members, didn't come from your congregation, and they get their parents' names and they go see them, or see that somebody goes see them. They're following up on everything like that. If you have a seminar of some kind, they're going to see this followed up on. If you have visitors that come for anything, services or any other kind of activity, they're going to see that there is good follow-up to that visit. That is a number one priority with them, to see that there is good follow-up to every visit. Maybe they see that they are put on an email list so they get occasional information about your congregation. Letters, phone calls, visits. They're going to be really, really working hard at following up the visitors. Here's the second thing they do. They look around the congregation and see if they are aware of anybody who has been coming for a while but who has never become a member of the church. A husband that comes with a wife that comes with a husband. Children who are older, who are at or past the time when they could make a decision to become a Christian. Somebody who's just been a regular visitor for a long time. They're going to look for those, and then they're going to strategize. They're going to say, what can we do to move that person to the point of making a decision about becoming a Christian? I don't recommend this, but let me tell you what happened. There was a woman whose husband had come with her to church for years, a lawyer. And they sat right down on the second or third row. And he was involved in things at church, and when we had work days, he'd show up, and but he never had been baptized into Christ. Well, we have Brothers Keepers groups, and so they went to a Brothers Keepers meeting, and it was the first time that group had met, and they were all going around introducing themselves. And he said, my name is this, but I'm not a member. I just attend with my wife. And the woman sitting next to him said, well, why aren't you a member? And he said, well, I just never have made that decision. Well, why don't you make it? He was baptized the next week. Sometimes, now, that's a little brash. I understand that, okay? But sometimes we're so afraid we'll do the wrong thing that we never do the right thing, okay? Be strategic about this. Plan. Talk to the husband or the wife. What could we do? How can we do this? What would help us in this situation? How can we work with you? That's what the ministry people are doing, see. They're also studying those who used to attend who don't attend anymore. If you got some of those at your place, I'll bet you do. What do we do? Just ignore them? Well, no, let's go out. What did Jesus say? Aren't you supposed to go after the lost sheep? And so, Jesus says, let's go after them. So, you plan. There was a congregation down in Texas that said, let's have a special day in which we welcome back people who have not attended in a while. Special day. So, they have this special day. They send letters, they do visits. They identified 50 people in their area that used to attend that weren't going to church at some other Church of Christ. 50. Fairly small congregation. 50. And on that day, 25 of them came back. Well, that's pretty good. Now that wasn't just, I mean, they worked it. They really worked it. They planned it and strategized and planned about it and how to do it. But that's this ministry group. They're asking, what can we do to get people to go out and reach people? Here's this one. Who would be best one to go see him? How can we best get that family back? What caused them to leave? And they're strategizing about that. This ministry also is active in trying to help every other ministry to be evangelistic. How can we make our benevolence ministry evangelistic? I know a church down in Oklahoma, its primary means of outreach is benevolence. They have a large storehouse. It's in a fairly poor community. And they regularly they're open every week, and people come and get food and clothing and whatever. But they do it in a way, they found a way to do that in a way that encourages them to make some contact with the church. And they do some follow-up. And every year they baptize people who have been acquainted with them through the benevolence they do. So the benevolence, they gain goodwill, and they're also using it as a way of reaching out to convert people. So here's a way in which the ministry, the evangelism ministry, is saying, how do we make our benevolence ministry evangelistic? How do we make our Bible school ministry evangelistic? We're going to teach people how they ought to treat a visitor that shows up to class. Have you ever thought about that? Here comes a visitor and sits down over there, and nobody talks to them, and nobody says anything, and they get up and leave. Well, we can't do that. We must not do that. You must train the class. When a visitor comes in, let's all be attentive to that, and let's talk to them and make them feel welcome, and let's have a way of following up when they after class is over. Let's really do it right. The ministry, evangelism ministry, is teaching classes how to do that. They're teaching the education ministry how to be evangelistic. They're talking to the people who take care of the building and help. How can we make our building a credit to us and help us in evangelism? They're talking to. They're working with those who plan the worship. Did you ever think about how a visitor is going to respond to how you conduct your worship? What if they come in and the public address system doesn't work? What are they going to think? Well, they don't do things very well here. I don't believe I'll come back. I mean, those who study this business say that even small things make a difference in whether somebody comes back. How do the flowers look? They look wonderful. But, you know, somebody's got to be thinking about those things. Is your worship done in a way that is visitor friendly? I don't mean change what you do or do something unscriptural. I just mean that you know, sometimes the selection of songs. You ought to think about, if a visitor comes and we're singing these songs, are they going to feel comfortable with this? Are they going to be able to sing some of these songs? Maybe you have somebody that says a few words before the Lord's Supper so that people who are visitors will know what that's about. You know, think about how the visitor is going to respond to being in the service. Well, the ministry, the evangelism ministry, is thinking about stuff like that all the time, and they are training your members to be evangelists. They have classes, and they teach them how to do these things. They teach them how to do conversational evangelism and some of these other things we're going to talk about. They are training people how to do Bible studies. They're training people in how to carry on these evangelistic activities. And they're very overt about training in the congregation. You know, I'm impressed with Ephesians chapter 4, where Paul describes the church. There are apostles and evangelists and pastors and teachers for the preparing of the saints to do their work. The church is a training institution. Jesus said, go out and make disciples of people, baptize them, and then teach them whatever I've commanded you. What are we supposed to do in church? Educate people. We are a training institution. And so this evangelism ministry is thinking about, how do we train people to be evangelistic? Starting in March, April, and May, I'm going to teach at our congregation the auditorium class on Wednesday night about evangelism. And we're already doing some strategizing, and we're going to do some more. For example, the day of the year in which more people visit a church somewhere than any other day in the year is Easter. So I'm teaching this class starting in March. You got it? What's the assignment in the class going to be? Bring somebody with you on Easter. And here's how to do it. See? And we're going to have some other special days and things like that. And so this class, I'm hoping, of course, our congregation is fairly large, so I'm hoping for 300 or 400 people in that class. You would know, in most places you'd have a smaller group of this, but even in that, I plan to say, okay, today we're studying conversational evangelism. Next week we're going to ask you who did it and tell us about it. I mean, we're having a class to train our congregation in evangelism. Well, we need to do that. And this ministry is thinking about things like that all the time. What can we do to reach out? What can we do to make ourselves well known? What can we do to follow up our visitors? What can we do to attract people to come? How can we use our benevolence? How can we reach out to people who are coming that never have made the decision? That's what this group is thinking about all the time. So that's ministry evangelism. Ministry evangelism. Now let's go to the next circle. And this is friendship evangelism. Friendship evangelism. Those who study ministry in any church tell us that most people who become members of a particular church were reached somehow through friends and relatives. That's how most of them are reached. So we need to be sure that we're doing well at friendship evangelism. You remember what Andrew did? What's the most important thing Andrew may ever have done? Brought Peter to Christ, okay? If that's all Andrew ever did, he still did pretty good, didn't he? I've heard these stories, and you have too, about some person brought to Christ, maybe some mother brought to Christ, and she has a son. That son becomes a preacher, and that son is instrumental in bringing hundreds of people to Christ because somebody brought her neighbor to church. You know, I mean, you've heard stories about that. So we want to be sure that we are utilizing friendship evangelism. Now, people have to be taught to do this. This doesn't just happen automatically. You've got to be very strategic about this. You've got to plan. How are you going to do this? How are you going to get people to do this? Well, here are some elements of friendship evangelism. You get members of your congregation to identify one or two friends or one or two families that they want to work with. It works best if you don't say, bring all your friends to church. We just don't operate that way. Find one friend, two friends, one family, two families, on which you're going to concentrate for friendship evangelism. Now, when you start talking about friendship evangelism, people sometimes say, well, but I don't want to manipulate my friends. Of course not. Would you like to give your friend a gift? What better gift than bringing them to Jesus? I mean, you tell me what's better than that. Of course you're not going to manipulate your friends, but on the other hand, if you want to do the best thing you could ever do for a friend, bring them to Christ. So you pick out one or two friends or one or two families, and you say, this is where I'm going to put my focus. I think this family or this friend is most likely to be responsive. They're most likely to want to come if I offered an invitation. I've already got a relationship with them. I like them, they like me. We do things together. I believe this is the one on whom I should focus my efforts. And so you select one person. Number two, you pray for that person every day. Every day you pray, Lord, help me to make the right decisions, to say the right words, to do the right things to help bring John to Christ. Pray every day. You believe in prayer? What's more important than pray about bringing people to the faith? Pray every day that John will come to Christ. Number three, every day you ask, what could I do today? What could I do today that would further this relationship? Maybe it's going to a ball game together. Maybe it's going out to eat. Maybe it's having them over for a meal. Maybe it is going shopping with them. Maybe it is telling them something about what happened at church. Maybe it is inviting them to some special event at church. Maybe it is inviting their kids to Vacation Bible School. You just ask, what could I do today? What could I do today that would further this relationship that might move that person just that much closer to coming to Christ? And so every day you ask, what can I do today? Just phone call, talk about the weather. Okay, if that's it for today, that's it. What can I do today that would help to make it more likely that person is going to come to Christ? And then fourth, of course, you look for opportunities to express your interest in their spiritual welfare. Invite them to church, invite them to Vacation Bible School, their kids. Maybe there's a special event at church. Churches ought to be doing special things that give people a chance to invite their friends. Churches need to have a Friends Day. There's a church down in Oklahoma that has had a Friends Day every year for like 15 years. They've really built up the concept. They advertise it in the local press. Their people are prepared to go out and ask people to come. They have little handouts to have them. This is a congregation of 300, and on Friends Day they have 750. They have to have 2 services because they can't get them all in one service. They have a meal. I mean, they really plan that deal, but imagine more than doubling your attendance on Friends Day. Think what kind of follow-up that gives you a chance to do. Well, could your congregation have a day like that? Well, you probably won't double your attendance the first time, but build it up. But see, if you're going to say to the congregation, we want you to do friendship evangelism, you've got to do things that help them to do that. For some reason, it's easier for me to invite my friends to something special at church than it is to come to regular weekly services. I don't know why that is, but it seems to be true. So, if you have a Friends Day or you have other special occasions, you have special events, you have a marriage seminar, you have a parenting seminar, you have a seminar on use of money, or there's some topics that go pretty well with this. This gives your members a chance to invite their friends to something special. I know a congregation in Nashville that every month or two they have a dinner at not at their building, but at some other place, and they say to their members, okay, we want you to come to this dinner and bring somebody. You can't come unless you bring somebody with you. We're going to have a special speaker in to talk on some religious topic, but the deal is you come and bring your friend, and if you bring your friend, you get to pay for their dinner. How about that? I know a church that has a golf tournament, and the deal is you can come and play if you bring your friend who's not a Christian and you pay for his golf. And they come out, a bunch of them do that. See, that's a way of making a contact. And then when they have a meal together after the golf, why, they tell them something about the church and stuff like that. All kinds of ways to do this, but you got to be, you got to work. You got to work it. You got to train the congregation. You got to give them things to invite people to. You got to give them opportunities for them to bring people. You got to teach them how to do it. You got to keep emphasizing it. But friendship evangelism is where most of the conversions are going to take place, are people, friends and relatives that have been brought. And we've got to be good at this if we want to really make it happen. Now, a lot of the stuff that we've had up here, you see, brings us down to this. When I talk to my friend, he already feels good about the church because we've had good public information, you see. And he's already seen my Christian life, and that's made a good impression. And I've been talking to them about what's going on at church. And so by the time I get down to friendship evangelism, I've laid the foundation, see. Foundation's laid. Well, that friendship evangelism circle is critical. It is very, very important that be the heart of what you do. We're getting now down to the conversion part, aren't we? See, this is where you're going to really reach people. So you have the friendship evangelism circle. Now the next circle is teaching the gospel. Everything else funnels down to that, doesn't it? Everything else, whoops, went too far. Everything else funnels down to that, down to teaching the gospel. Now, obviously you've got to have ways of teaching people. Sometimes you are equipped to teach your friend the gospel. Fine. Sometimes you need other people to help you do that. Okay, that's fine. The ministry up here, the evangelism ministry, has people prepared to help you if you need help. They have people who can do home Bible studies. They have people who can do one-on-one studies. And so they can do that, or they can prepare you to teach. But we come now to the teaching circle. Now, there are many ways to do that. One of the ways to do that, of course, is to do it in a one-on-one Bible study. You can sit down with a person, or maybe you and your friend and somebody that you want to help you teach. Sit down in your home or their home or some other place that's convenient and teach them the gospel message. You can do that in various ways. There are film strips and materials, videos and things like that you can use. There are various kinds of booklets and pamphlets that lead you through the gospel story. In my book on evangelism, I've got a plan that shows 10 little pictures that anybody can draw, little happy faces and little words and things that lead you through the gospel story that anybody could learn. You could teach everybody at church how to do from 3rd grade up, how to lead people through these 10 little pictures. It's in chapter 2 in the book. Shouldn't everybody in the church know how to tell somebody how to become a Christian? Shouldn't that be one of our goals? But anyway, there's that little system that I've got. There are various kinds of materials available, and if your evangelism ministry is on the ball, they're going to have ways they recommend and prepare people to do whatever that is. And so you're going to teach the gospel. And people are going to be ready to do that because of the friendship evangelism they've done. There may be small group Bible studies, and those are good. So in my home, I say, okay, I'm going to invite 3 of my friends, 3 other families, and we're going to go together and we're going to have a Bible study in my home. And one will be the teacher and one will be the host. And we're all going to commit to saying, we will bring somebody with us every week to this home Bible study. And when we come, we're going to study the Bible. We're going to study through Matthew or some plan that we have. And we're going to study with these people. We're going to bring somebody. We're going to have a little refreshments. We're going to have a nice friendly meeting. Usually, people don't decide to be baptized in a group meeting. You'll have to get with them after you prepare them. You'll have to get with them individually and do a little one-on-one study. But you can be, group small home Bible studies are a very good thing to do. It's a very good plan. Correspondence studies you can do. We've been doing a correspondence study with some friends. It's been really interesting. We had one-on-one studies with this family 25 years ago, I guess, and nothing came as a result of it. And but the man has gotten older, and he's done some time in the hospital. And we thought, this might be a pretty good time to reconnect with them. And so I asked him out for breakfast, and I'm a fast eater and he's a slow eater. So we had a long time at breakfast. I was through in a hurry so I could talk, and he was still eating. And we talked. And I asked him, I just said, tell me about your background in religion. He said, well, I was brought up in a religious home, and I went to a church, but there were some things about that experience that kind of turned me off. He said, I wanted to be baptized. They baptized, and they were going to baptize me in the river. He was brought out in the country, and said, but it didn't happen. Somehow it was going to do, and it was too cold and whatever, and I just never did do it. And then I quit going to church. And so he told me about all this, okay. And then I said, well, what about now? How do you feel about that now? He said, well, I know I need to do something. I'm not where I need to be. He's recently been to the funeral of 3 or 4 of his friends. It's beginning to dawn on him he's not going to live forever. Okay? And so, spent some time, and then some time with him and his wife. And about 6 weeks ago, he was baptized. So sometimes it takes a long time for the seed to grow and to be planted, and the circumstances have to be right. But we need ways of teaching. Here's an interesting thing that I've heard of recently. There's a guy in California who's a member of the church who has developed some little newsletters, front and back newsletters, you know, just 8.5 by 11 size. And here's his system. He says, okay, you get a neighborhood in which you have somebody to have a paper route. That's what he called it. And twice a week, you go around, and to these 30 or 40 homes, you leave one of these little newsletters. And it's got interesting articles, mostly about religious things, but not strong religious teaching, but kind of door-opening kind of things. And so you take these around twice a week for about 6 or 8 weeks. And then you go around, and you don't knock on the doors or anything, you just leave it there. And then you go around and you knock on the door, and you have one in your hand, and you say, have you been receiving this? Yes. Have you enjoyed reading it? No, we didn't like it. Okay, you go to the next door. Have you read it? Yes. Did you like it? Yes, we enjoyed it. Well, that's good. Let me tell you about the church that's been sending these to you. And it's a way of kind of softening things up for door knocking. And he's had some really good results with that. So that's an interesting way in which you can kind of work in a neighborhood for a while and then knock on the doors and then get a correspondence course into those places or have them come to church or whatever. So there are lots of ways of teaching the gospel. I started to tell you about this friend of mine. We started with a correspondence course in which they would answer it, and then we'd go see them with the answers, and we'd sit down and go through the correspondence course. So we used the correspondence course as a way for them to study when we weren't teaching them, and it worked out pretty well. So, teaching the gospel. You get down to the point where you do the teaching in whatever way is best and most appropriate so that you can be sure that this teaching is going on. You must get to this point. You've got to, all these other things funnel down to the point of teaching. Preachers need to preach evangelistic sermons. Some of us are old enough to know that we used to have lots of evangelistic sermons, but now that's kind of passed out of style a little bit. Preachers, let me encourage you, preach evangelistic sermons. And let people know you're going to preach those, and have them invite their friends to those sermons that are on the basic gospel story. We need to have, you may want to have a special Bible class on Sunday mornings for those who are not members. Some call it a community Bible class. Some call it a seekers class. I know a congregation in Little Rock that's got 200 in its seekers class on Sunday morning. It's a congregation of about 1,400. They've got a huge class, many of whom are just visitors to the class, who've been attracted by people, and so this person says, well, come with me to church. There's a special class for people who are interested in knowing more about the Bible. Sometimes a visitor comes and they go into a class and we're studying Hebrews or whatever, and they don't know what's going on, you know. So this is a special class for them. That's a way to do some teaching, with a special seekers class or a community Bible class. But you need to be thinking clearly, and this ministry group is going to be helping to say how do we prepare people, how do we to do the teaching, how do we set up so we can have the teaching, how can we, they visit maybe even with a preacher about having evangelistic sermons once a quarter or something or whatever, or maybe have a gospel meeting. Would that still be okay to have a gospel meeting? Kind of gotten away from that, haven't we? Well, the same things don't always work. It's all right, but But unfortunately, what I think is happening, we quit having the gospel meetings and we didn't think about what do we do to take his place, you know. So we need to be thinking about lots of different ways to get the gospel message out there. One-on-one studies, correspondence studies, home Bible studies, special occasions at church, community Bible class, using this method of handing out the newsletters. There's a little thing you can send out, a publication called House to House. Didn't you ever use House to House? Some of you use that. That's a good method. So you've got to see what works in your situation, but you must get down to the teaching point, and then of course that brings people to the next level, which is conversion. They're going to be converted, and we need to bring them to that point of where they can go through that process of saying, well, I realize I'm lost and I need a Savior, and Jesus can be my Savior, and I need to believe and repent and be baptized and make that decision. And so we lead them through that process, the conversion process. Everything is to focus down to that point. And then, of course, once you do that, you must do the follow-up. And you need a plan, a system for follow-up. It does not happen automatically. So you've done all these things, and you've brought somebody to the point of being baptized, and then you say, okay, now I'll forget him and go and work on somebody else. Is the wrong method, isn't it? You need to be strategic about your follow-up. For example, I know of a congregation that says, okay, we got 5 families. Family number 1 will take the new convert the first week, and the next one the second week, and the next one the third week, and the fourth week, and the next one the fifth week. They'll have them over to their home for dinner. They have a little Bible lesson they'll teach them. Get acquainted with them. Let them feel a part. Now they know some people at church. That's their method of follow-up. Others have somebody that they say, okay, this person's converted. Your job is to be a buddy to them and to keep in touch with them and to see them at church and call them at home and all of that. Okay. There are a variety of methods, but you must have a plan for how you're going to do the follow-up. This person has been brought to Christ. They're a babe in Christ, and we need to be prepared to nurture them. That word nurture, we're to nurture them. Nurture them. They're a babe. They've got to be brought to maturity. You seen a baby lately? Well, they need lots of help, don't they? And that's the idea. We need to be standing by with lots of help for those who become Christians. We need to be visiting them. We need to be sharing with them. We need to be inviting them into our homes. We need to be making friends. We need to be getting them busy. One of the best ways to nurture a new convert is to get that new convert busy. Here's something you can help with. You can help with the Monday night for the master program. You can help with. Do you have some friends that you'd like for us to visit that we might bring to church? Many times the new convert knows more non-Christians than you do, and so they're sometimes very good at finding people they can bring to church with them. We're going to have a day of work around the building. You come and help us. Get them busy. Get them busy. Working with them. In fact, here's a really interesting thing is, this kind of goes back a little bit, but to friendship evangelism, but a very good thing to do when you have some work that you're doing at church is to invite your friend who is not a member to come and help you with the work. You're going to go out and clean up a school, invite them to go with you. They can meet lots of other Christians. See, that'll be good. They'll see you doing good things. So invite them to come and go with you to do these things. Going on a retreat, maybe. Invite your friend to go with you on a retreat. That'd be something special. So get them involved in the work and do things like that. Now the follow-up is crucial. We've got to do the follow-up. Sometimes people say we bring them in the front door and they leave out the back door because we don't do the follow-up. You've got to stay in touch. You've got to help them. You've got to nurture them. You've got to help them to feel a part of the congregation, make them feel comfortable, make them feel that they're really accepted. And so that's really crucial. I know there are a lot of churches that when a baptism takes place, they surround the people with a lot of people around, and they have a special prayer for them and things like that. That's a good beginning, and then you just keep doing as many things as you can to keep those people engaged and involved in the church. Now, what we've looked at here is the whole package, okay? A congregation that really is an evangelistic congregation is going to have all of these things. All of these circles are going to be working.